Yes, it is. Yeah.
The individual.
I know, yeah, we changed our forms to match the city councils.
Almost 6:30.
It's like we're recording. So.
It's. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 6:30, May 12th, 2025, Planning Commission meeting. Roll call, please.
Chair Helfrich,
I'm here.
Commissioner Hanson is absent. Commissioner Monceau.
Here.
Commissioner Luss.
Here.
Commissioner McFadden. Here. Commissioner Norpshin is, I believe, on Zoom. It just looks like she raised her hand. And
Okay.
Commissioner Adams is also on Zoom. We have
All righty. Real good.
And just really quick, I don't know both the panels.
perfect. Okay.
All righty. At this time, I invite everyone who is willing and able to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Alrighty, so we have approval of the minutes from March 10th.
I have a comments which is why we paused, so I went ahead and put those in writing and stuff. Yes, we can pass this one too, if you guys want to have a copy.
So has everybody taken a chance to take a look?
I'm still reading.
I forgot one. I didn't grab one for myself. Just take a moment and read this.
What's that?
Much other folks' recollection as well, there's a recording on.
Is this verbatim from the recording?
No.
I'll try to share this with Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Norpshin. Since they're unable to see.
I can email one more copy.
Mr. Chair, can we maybe adjust the agenda and come back with this? that the commissioner online have a chance.
Sure. Give everybody a good chance to read. I agree. Good catch. Let's do that. Let's pause and table this for a little bit here on March 10th minutes, but April 28th. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at April 28th minutes? And do we have any changes, amendments, anything else to add?
Well, I move that we approve the minutes for April 28th, 2025.
I second.
I have a first and a second for approval of the minutes of April 28th, 2025. Roll call.
Chair Helfrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson is absent, sorry. Commissioner Monceau,
Yes.
Commissioner Lutz,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yeah.
Commissioner Norpshin. She says yes in the chat. Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay,
Motion
thank you,
passes.
folks. So at this time, we're on public comments. This is the items for a person to speak, wanting to present information or raise an issue not on the agenda. Each person shall be limited to 3 minutes, or if the chair allows more, which the chair has that option. When you, on the sign-up sheet, is this the sign-up sheet?
Yes, this is our new public
Wow.
comment sign-in sheet that which matches the request from the mayor that we have a sheet that kind of mirrors what City of Ashland looks like. So it looks a little bit different, but it allows
does.
folks to comment on either a public comment or an agenda item. So
Okay. Anyway, so we just wish that you come forward, state your name, address for the record, and about it under state law. So on our fancy new sign-up sheet, we have Joe Slaughter, not a Phoenix resident, topic, public comments, strategy. Oh, he wants to speak on strategy planning. Mr. Slaughter, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Joe Slaughter. My address is 280 Stanford Avenue in Medford. I'm here just to inform you all about an ongoing process that's started back in April, basically, with the city looking to update its current strategic plan. So the existing plan was adopted in 2021, roughly a year after the Almeda fire. It's been basically the roadmap that the city council has and staff have been following for priorities since the adoption of the strategic plan in 2021. The plan itself has been, I would say, very successful in helping to bring about some of the changes you've probably noticed in Phoenix over the last 3 or 4 years. But the plan itself, because it was so heavily focused on actionable items, has reached kind of a point where most of those items have been completed, which is a really great thing to show that you've actually done the work of the plan. So the city council also has some changes from the last election. So with the new council, they're looking to update the strategic plan and to this time engage a little bit more of a community-based plan. Back in 2021, the city was kind of scrambling, trying to get its bearing and move forward and trying to set a roadmap for what to do. The plan was adopted with very little input from the community. It was more of a staff and council saying, these are the things we see are priorities over the next few years for redevelopment and recovery. But this council wants to take some time to come up with more of a strategic vision from the community before then putting together the strategic plan and those measures that will, get us to, I guess, the actionable items that will get us closer to those goals. So with that, the ask is that both the Planning Commission and also the Parks and Recreation Committee put together just a short list of priorities that can be adopted through motion for the formal recommendation of the priorities for those two groups. So in this case, the Planning Commission. And so instead of trying to do that work all here together at one time, the thought is, and Zach will talk more about this because this isn't any kind of direction. This is just the information because I'm involved in helping to update the strategic plan. But that you would meet at a future meeting with some ideas that everybody brings their own to the meeting of about 5 priorities that you personally think the Planning Commission should be passing on to the City Council as priorities for the Planning Commission. And then as a group, bring those together and try to make a single list that you can all agree that these are the priorities of the Planning Commission. And I think we're looking at the first meeting in June for when that would happen. So you have some time. But also wanted to make you aware of the fact that there are going to be 2 public meetings, May 27th, May 28th. You should all hopefully be receiving something in the mail here probably by the end of the week. It's meant to go out into the mail, I think, Wednesday, notifying everybody of a survey that's online, showing you how to access that survey, and also inviting everybody. So when say everybody, all water billing customers of the city of Phoenix, to participate on the survey online and also to come out to these two public meetings, the 27th and 28th of May. The 27th will be a meeting that is conducted in English with Spanish translation. And the meeting on the 28th will be conducted in Spanish with English translation. So we're hoping that we can include everybody in helping us plan for the future of Phoenix. So once this information is gathered, the City Council will meet likely sometime in July to actually go over what was received from the public and then work through the process of creating the plan. Then the plan, once that is done, there'll be some time that it takes to actually write the plan based off the input from the City Council. So then it will come back to the council probably sometime in early fall for their review. And then the plan is to go back out to the public with it. So the public can say, yes, this looks like what we expected to see. And then probably November-ish, we're looking for the City Council to actually adopt the plan. But the thought is this is going to be both kind of a vision statement for the city and a strategic plan. Several organizations, Medford, for instance, have kind of 2 separate things. They have this recently adopted 2040 vision plan, which is meant to be like the long range vision overall. And the strategic plan is adopted more frequently to continue to action towards that vision. In this case, the vision is something that's kind of new here. So I think we'll see how it goes in this process, because before the strategic plan was kind of I'll call it a visionless plan, but not meaning that derogatorily. It was just a matter of here are the goals and we're going to work towards that, but it didn't necessarily have a larger community vision that was focusing towards just several different goals that could, give you an idea or sense of what the vision was, but it wasn't a strong vision. So I think in this time, we're going to try to have a vision that's connected to the strategic plan, and then ultimately come back later and see if that works well, or if there needs to be a longer range vision that stays in place as councils change and the strategic plan may change. But we have a kind of a guiding light that over the course of a longer period of time, 20 years or whatever, we're not moving all over the place. We're kind of staying this way, although councils change as far as some of their priorities and some of their things that they may approach, but overall we're still heading in that same direction. So that is probably more long-term where the city will go. But in this case, this is just trying to get us centered and say, right now, this is what we need to do. Let's work on this for the next several years. So with that, I think I spoke for more than 3 minutes. Are there any questions for me on any of that?
No, I encourage more. Yeah, it's again, there's no action on our part, of course, but I guess we can ask a few questions from the commissioners at this time.
Yeah, I suppose it would break. I mean, that's up to you as the chair.
I think I would encourage it, if anybody has some lightning question is just burning at them to bring it out. Otherwise, I'd like to move on and turn it over to you, Mr. Moody. Does any commissioner really have some heartburn item they want to bring up?
It's not a hard one, item, but just, did you happen to have the time and location of the meetings on May 27th, 28th?
Yeah, they'll both be 6 o'clock.
Yes.
The 27th will be here in the Civic Center. The 28th will be across the street in the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center meeting room at the front of the new City Hall building.
Okay, thank you.
Good catch. Anybody else? If not, then,
Well, and just to be clear too, for the commission, you all have a meeting on the 27th. So if you'd like to go, you probably are going to have to schedule that on the 28th, because we do have a public hearing on the 27th. So, or we'll have a planning commission meeting on the 27th.
And the meetings are mostly just so people have an opportunity to, I guess, be heard. The survey is going to be available to everybody, and we really hope that we can get as many responses to the survey as possible. We also ask that you all help to inform people, your neighbors and friends and other people you're in contact with in Phoenix, and let them know this survey's out there. And it's really important because, you know, the community vision can only be formed if we get community input. So we really want to get that out there. The meetings, sometimes I think, you know, people fill out a survey and they're not sure, you know, what happens with that, or for whatever reason, they feel better just telling somebody in person. So that's the idea, is that there will be an opportunity to hear more about what's happening in life, and then also give some, you know, small group dialogue. I think also sometimes it's nice to hear from other people and what they're thinking, because then it sparks ideas. So the whole idea is an opportunity for dialogue in that. But the meetings themselves aren't going to be like, if you miss it, we didn't hear from you, because the surveys where we really want to collect the information as
Sure.
much as possible.
so what's the deadline to get the surveys back?
We'll probably keep it open until near the end of June. We'll have to shut it off at some point, because that way we can compile all the data before we go to that city council meeting or workshop. But I'm going to say end of June probably is what we would target for that.
So you said something about the water bill. It'll be in the water bill, this information, or how do we
No,
get this out? How are we getting this out?
It's going to be completely separate
That
from the
guy
water
over there.
bill. It's the water billing list. That's who it's being sent to.
Okay,
Because that is all water customers in Phoenix.
Perfect.
So it's also the residents in most cases, as opposed
Right.
to like a landlord. So it's actually one of the property. It's not going to, you know, some California address or whatever. It's going to that location. And it also includes some areas that aren't yet part of Phoenix, but I think it's important to hear for them, because
Yeah.
a lot of that will be Phoenix in 2027.
Yep.
And so I think it's important to hear from those residents as well.
awesome. Well, that's good. Good approach. I like it.
You should make sure you get the mobile home parks.
Yeah.
In some way, because they're not getting the separate water.
Yeah, that's right.
Water bill list.
So what then we actually are kind of mirroring the process that the city used in updating the Parks Master Plan. And in that case, the staff went out and delivered some additional flyers and that sort of stuff to the mobile home parks, and we'll do the same thing.
Perfect.
And then also we'll work with staff to get, I guess I'm not sure if it'll be Rosa or Zach or who, but to get this up on the city website and also on the Facebook page as well.
That's great. I like this. This is good. I like it. Sarah, Wendy, did you guys have anything to add or ask?
Not tonight, thank you, though.
Okay. All right, at this time, is there anything else?
That's it.
No, you
Nice,
covered it.
nice seeing you all, and I will
Man.
be stepping out, but it's not because I'm sure that you aren't
Oh.
interesting stuff. It's just,
Sure, we understand.
all right. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
He has a life.
So, Mr. Zach. I'm sorry. No, that was it. That's the
Oh,
that's the only public comment we have unless,
For new business.
all righty.
1 second to pull this. Oh, actually, we're not doing presentations yet. I'm getting ahead of myself. I got this training presentation for you all. I'm really excited to share it. So.
We're all so riveted and excited.
All right, so what we would do with a continued public hearing is I'm going to give you just a brief update. You all asked for me to bring back comments on the public comments that were received at the last meeting. Those are the staff reports, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them unless there are questions about the direction that we went. I did have one other change that we caught, and I wanted to bring it to the Planning Commission's attention because it is a policy level decision where portions of what's being proposed in our code is more strict than state law. And so I wanted to talk with you all about that. But did you want me to go through the staff report, or did you all have a chance to take a look at the comments that Mr. K submitted last week versus staff's comments and the consultant's comments?
I did see them. I had a chance to review them. Yes, I did.
Well, are we gonna go over those comments and possibly incorporate those into the changes that we want to have happen?
So they're already incorporated if they were going to be in the draft that you have. I'm more than welcome. I'm more than happy to go over it with you guys. If you would like, I can go through the staff report with you.
Well, there was a change that came in regarding the definition of light manufacturing that Paul made. And I don't think that's incorporated.
And that one, I believe I might have to defer to Chris on that one. Chris and Kathy are both on the line as well. Take a look. That was not in the staff report.
No. And I have it written here if you want me to hand it out with the comments, what the changes he recommended are. And they're pretty basic.
Yeah, we can do that as well. I must have missed that one. We were looking at the policy level and then we were looking at the detail level. Let me just go over what they were really quick with you all, and then you can add the industrial or the manufacturing one in. So Mr. K had mentioned some conversation about pathway connections through properties being voluntary and incentivized rather than being required. The recommendation from both myself and the consultant is to keep the pathway and connections mandatory. We went through this process to make sure that the pathways are connected when they can be. It's not going to be something that we can do a lot because a lot of development, especially in PH3, already has made it so that those connections can't be made because there are a lot of developments against the Greenway and PH3 that didn't get impacted by the fire or that have already rebuilt. Requiring properties within 100 feet of Bear Creek Greenway to meet the standards of the Bear Creek Greenway zone. The Bear Creek Greenway zone is very specifically written for that type of development, and it would be overly restrictive to apply that development standard. It's more riparian in nature to the commercial standards. So staff's recommendation there was to leave it as it was proposed originally. We talked about, or the issue of trash enclosures was brought up. And I do have more comments from Paul this morning, which I emailed to all of you, but if you didn't have a chance to see it. Paul had additional comments about the trash enclosures, which initially we had determined that most city codes want the trash enclosures to be completely enclosed and not visible. They can be an eyesore, especially in their location. While we acknowledge that security can be an issue, and yes, you can lock a trash enclosure up and people can hop over it and you still can't see them. We would just hope that there's a certain amount of level of security there that would prevent anything like that from happening. But it is common practice in planning to require that those enclosures be completely solid so that you can't see what's behind the trash enclosure.
We heard that it's about the location of where it could be. Like, I think it says at the end of the building where in his location doesn't work.
Yeah. Again, That is pretty standard.
What?
It's pretty standard to have it against the building and not away from the building. Um, you know, we can go back and make modifications to that if we want the trash enclosures to be wherever. But I would propose to keep it the way that it was written.
Well, again, I know I just went by the foodery and theirs is on the other side of the parking lot, which makes sense. It's away from smells and odors and secure and so on like that, which I think is okay. I do agree that I have a whole problem with location. Right next to the building of a place where you're serving food and everything at certain times of the year could be kind of a problem.
Right.
And I could see what he was saying, and I see it over here is that if you look at the location, it's away from the building, especially where there's food. It's not like a grocery store or something like that where you have cardboard condensers and things like
Right,
that.
right.
Different.
I'm just sorry. I'm just trying to figure out which section that was in again.
There should be some freedom there, I guess. Is what I'm saying.
Right.
Chris, do you have the section that trash ordinance was in? Oh, Chris may need to be available. to
There we go.
speak. There we go.
I'm sorry, I'm looking that up really quick as well.
I remember it was buried.
Yeah.
I'm guessing chapter 2-4 changes, commercial highway.
Yeah. Sorry, I have every other question that I could think of marked, but not that one.
Which I think was 2.4 commercial highway.
Yes, sir.
I got that right here. Outdoor lighting, talks about lighting.
All right.
So the requirement is behind or beside buildings. So it's
What
simply.
what chapter was that? 2.4.
2.4, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
Mr. K, are you on there?
Yes.
I just wonder if he can get us there quicker.
2.4.
Yes, I'm here. I'm looking up the section. It's in the April 28th written comments.
Yeah, I know that, but where is it on the land
development code.
the code? Do you know which section it's in? We're looking at 2.4. I don't see it.
It's in 2.4.4.
0.4.4.
Can we bring up the LDC on the screen?
Hold on, let's see here. So you all should have, you guys all have that right, page number 2.
Yeah. Page what?
Yes.
What was the subsection, Chris?
2.4.4.
Right, I got that. Good.
Okay.
Building articulation, ground floor. Separation, street facing on residential, building entrances, site design.
I don't see it there.
There's 2.4.4 A, B, C.
Oh, it's in E.
A66.
Here it is. It's in 2.3 and 2.4. Architectural guidelines and standards in both cases.
Thank you.
2.3.8 and 2.4.4. B, site design.
Did you find it?
Does this look accurate, Jeff? Is this the right section?
No, this is 2-2. I think we need to keep going. First will be, this is a good section. It'll be in here under 2-3. Not much farther. Yeah, it's in here. Yep, it's in here somewhere. Might be able to just control F trash.
I'm getting seasick.
There we go. So mechanical and service.
This whole
Thank you.
section.
There we go.
I think the easiest, yeah, I think this just got mixed in with,
This is on page.
yeah, it's on page 100.
Building estimate, protecting weather. So,
Chris, is there another place where you moved trash enclosures to?
It's it appears in each of the zones because the design standards are pretty pretty standard between the three. So there's on the final draft amendment, there's one in 2.3.8B. So there's one on page 50 of that packet. One on page 68.
I'm just thinking the simple solution is to remove such as trash enclosures on that section. And have that be specifically for mechanical equipment, because I think that's the intent more than anything, was to keep the mechanical equipment and service equipment adjacent to the building so that it could be screened properly.
It's a behind or beside building, so it's really not necessarily requiring it to be adjacent to the building, just not between the building and the street.
Well, why not just take away trash from that section like you're
Yeah.
suggesting?
I think that's probably the easy solution there. If we still have trash enclosures in each zone.
If you remove trash, are there other service equipment items? Because it's a service equipment such as trash enclosures. So would you need to modify that whole section?
No, I think ground level mechanical and service equipment, I would account for like HVAC systems and things of that nature. So I think if you just take out the such as trash enclosures, period, just say ground level mechanical service equipment must be located behind or beside buildings away from the public street. And trash enclosures are handled separately.
Just for my education, what's another service equipment that isn't a trash enclosure?
Well, again, right. I don't know right off the top of my head.
Cardboard.
Yeah, well, the trash enclosures usually have the garbage place usually has the cardboard container and with the garbage anyway.
Well,
Is there a definition
it
for?
depends on the usage. You take like Ray's Market, they got a cardboard, what do you call that? Where you,
Yeah, I think we're
but it's, they want it close to the building, makes sense. But when it comes to food, you really don't want it. You have to leave it up to, I think, the owner where you have it. And it still has to be accessible for the trucks to come, pick it up, haul it away.
yeah, I'm fine with removing service as well and just saying ground level. Is that what you were saying? Ground level mechanical equipment?
I just wondered, for
Yeah.
clarification, so we don't end up getting caught up later with
Yeah.
definitions.
Well, and I think there's discretion that can be applied too, right? So if somebody comes in with some other type of mechanical equipment, does it fit the definition of that? There's some discretion that can be applied. So without the question of, is that service or mechanical? So I guess my recommendation, given your question, Commissioner Loves, would be to remove, as Commissioner McFadden said, the service and such as trash enclosures. Okay. Easy enough.
I think the separate issue though is whether or not trash enclosures they're addressed somewhere else, right? and they still have to be fully enclosed.
Yeah, 2.3.8. Where did that go?
No, we didn't take that away.
No, there really wasn't ever a locationary standard for it. It was more that it had to be specific concrete wall. Yeah, we'll take it out of there. We'll take it out of chapter 2.2 as well.
They
I think
do,
the previous requirement was it couldn't be within 25 feet of a public entrance or a pedestrian walkway.
Yeah,
I do understand the intention, and my hope would be that the commission would consider including that provision, that we do actually consider where we put the trash and that it isn't out front, it isn't visible, it's not going to be walkability, it's not going to be what people are walking by all the time. But I just want to make sure it's addressed somewhere if we're removing it from here.
yeah. I'm sorry, I did not bring my whole entire code today, so I have pieces of it here, so bear with me.
It's okay.
Can you search through there again? Chris, did you say what's 2.3.8 what?
The deleted portion of where trash enclosures were addressed previously was in 2.3.8 AE. Or I'm sorry, E.
I'm getting there. 2.3.8.
Oh,
I'm not seeing it. In the delete. 2.3.8 subsection E.
Sorry, I was in the wrong section.
I know CH talks about it 2.4. Every CH project we've had talks about trash enclosures and how they have to be screened and oriented.
No, that's good.
So if you want to look at that one first, it's 2.4.4E,
what page?
66 of the live zoning code.
Yeah, it just talks about the construction. Yeah, so here's exactly what it says, and we can put this back in. So trash, and we can put this in 2.4 and 2.3. Trash enclosures shall be constructed of 6-foot high masonry walls with solid metal gates. The floor of the entrance shall be constructed of concrete with 6x10 concrete apron placed at the front enclosure. The masonry material used shall be selected to match the materials used in the building or buildings that it serves. Trash enclosures shall not be located within 25 feet of a public entrance or required pedestrian walkway. That's what the current code says.
That's what the current code says. And
Yeah.
then the modification given our,
Modification took it out and put it in with, combine it there, but we can undelete it and leave it in section 2.4 and 2.3. And I would recommend doing that.
you'd recommend just reverting back to the current code.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty.
Good. Okay. Yeah, sorry. The first time I didn't actually bring my actual written code. Smack myself around for that one.
There's so much to it. It's so detailed. There's so much information.
Yeah, no, it's a lot for sure. Okay, so now let me just get reoriented here. Okay, so trash enclosures resolved.
Yeah.
Okay, the other question was of EV chargers. Suggest requiring installation of underground conduits for cost-efficient adaptation of rapidly evolving EV charging technology. recommend adopting the model. So staff recommended adopting the model code. And let's go here. So the model code actually doesn't require you install EV chargers. Rather, it requires that you install conduit for EV chargers, and that a certain percentage of residential and certain percentage of commercial shall be pre-wired or pre-conduited, have conduit in the ground. And so it is 20% of required or of parking spaces in commercial shall be EV ready with the conduit, and 40% in multifamily residential dwelling units. I believe that's multifamily. Townhouses are not included for the purpose of determining the applicability of the regulation. So model code, what was in our code was more restrictive than the model code. So I'm recommending that we be consistent with the model code and we transition to the EV portion of requirements as we are required to, either with the climate friendly and equitable city rules that we'll have to go through and amend our code for in some short order, or when the state actually mandates it outside of that. It's a cost burden. I think that at this point is difficult for a community this size to handle. Most cities that are adopting code are probably not over adopting code unless they have, they have a high use of EV vehicles.
When you think it through, who's going to pay for the electricity? I mean, let's say there's 10 stores in a plaza and there's EV charging station. Who pays for someone to plug in their car? Or does the
property
Tesla driver?
Yeah.
But there's 10 different stores there.
Right.
So the owner of the store complex would, it's 24 shops.
Would pass that on to the renter. Yeah.
And if it's homes, the owner of the complex pays for it, someone's electricity.
I believe some of them are actually fee. The driver who plugs in pays.
Right.
So that's,
and they can do that.
yeah.
They can do that with subscription.
That's better.
I know a lot of private organizations don't. They just have them there. Gas stations do. They make sure they make you charge them.
I do.
So again, I don't think that we should be ready to do this, but to mandate that something outside of what's not required by statute at this time is probably a little excessive for our small town code.
I agree.
I think your suggestion is fine with me. I'm just making a comment.
Yeah.
I believe
Good.
at this point in time too, I'm not sure how this rides with the fine line between not being able to require parking requirements. So that
Right.
seems like it's kind of a gray area to me on that one too.
So it's if you choose to have parking, this is how many spaces you need to do. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
It's a tough balance, right? Provide more parking that we need, and then there are extra circumstances being, that are added to that. So where we can make the cost per parking space less right now, we should probably do that until we're told otherwise. That's my recommendation.
That's all you can do. Yeah. I wouldn't go any more than what state requires, that's for sure.
But they do require them to have something. So there will be something there
Something.
should some requirements come down the line later on. We aren't in a position of not being
Right.
able to retrofit, right?
Right.
Correct.
That's the idea, right? And some people may change their mind about that too. Their business model may change. They may have more office related staff versus retail staff that doesn't turn over as much. Maybe it becomes a private use facility. I mean, there are a lot of reasons I believe to put the conduit in. I think that's definitely a beneficial thing.
So we're working on a public parking lot, correct?
Yes. So we will have to have them EV ready, but I don't know again that we're ready to have EV chargers. I know we will be looking to probably install those, but as Commissioner McFadden said, and Commissioner Love said, somebody's got to pay for it. And the subscriptions and the setting that up is rather difficult. We did do that in Talent and
Aren't they? I thought, I guess maybe I don't have an electric car, so I don't know. I thought they were on a meter. In other words, like you pay as you go. Is that as a,
I can speak to at least my experiences. Most fast chargers is it charges it to your credit card or to your debit
sure,
card account.
exactly. So that's where the cost
There's slow
goes.
chargers that I don't.
That's where the
know
cost
much
is
about.
at. It's not up to, so in the public one, it would be on a credit card. Just like like buying gas.
right, but not
Same thing. So
but
so
not every
the public
private person.
parking lot should have these available with a meter. They pay for it.
But I think
Same
at this-
thing on a public, whether it's your private property, apartment or whatever, it's still the same thing because you can park anywhere. How are you going to tie it back to the apartment? They're on a meter.
Yeah, if I may, I think that at this point in time, though, we're just being asked to approve whether or not the conduit in preparation would be there. And then the businesses themselves have the opportunity to choose if they're going to actually install the chargers or not based off of.
Right, and figure out the mechanism.
But they have to have the
So is that-
capacity there to be able to do
Is
it.
that answering his question of who pays for it?
I think that we don't have
So who
to,
has
I
pay
don't think
for it is
we.
the conduit. Who
I
pays
think
for the
that's a-
conduit?
No, that is, well, the conduit gets paid for by the developer would be my understanding. However, the actual, the conduit is different than the actual EV charger. And that EV charger at the time of development, I think that if there may be choices that the business owner or that the developer may be able to make about how whether they want to do free chargers and assess it to rent, or if they want to have them charged. But that's something that isn't on the table now. That's a decision that's being left later for business owners to decide.
No, that, I mentioned that.
So maybe I didn't understand your question. You
That-
asked
that was-
who pays for what?
There's just an off the cuff comment. It's irrelevant to what we're trying to do here.
Okay, well,
We
exactly.
can approve the model.
Exactly. But you asked the question, I was just
Yeah.
trying to get clarification
I
on.
appreciate that.
Okay, moving on to section 3.3.3C. We had a discussion about removal of landscape requirements in the commercial zone, in the downtown commercial zone. As proposed, the language requiring 10% of the development site was removed. After reviewing it, staff recommends keeping the existing language to ensure that the subject property is not completely developed with hardscape or not landscaped appropriately.
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
I did some research on that with developers, and even the 10% in is just fine with me, and it was fine with them also. So, so Commissioner McFadden's suggestion is, I think, a good one.
Yeah, and I did put a little note in here too. I think unless they can meet their stormwater requirements some other way other than above ground retention, you put in a building on a 5,000 square foot lot, you're probably going to meet your landscape requirements by the retention requirements that you're going to have for stormwater. It was a little different before when you could just do stormwater detention underground in your parking lot and it could be buried, but you can't do that anymore. You have to have above surface retention that can evaporate, that the water can evaporate from the retention facility. Section 3.3.3D discusses landscape materials. This one was pretty straightforward. Commissioner Norton asked if it would be possible to put more information or recommendations for native and fire resistant plants. And so in subsection 2, I proposed when developing new building sites, native and fire resistant plants are encouraged to enhance safety, conserve water, and to support local ecosystems. But following that change, there had to be another one because we already prohibited non-native vegetation, but that becomes a little tough to get everything native, especially if you want it to be landscaped at the time of development. Sometimes it's a challenge. So my recommendation on the next section was existing non-native invasive plants per chapter 3.3.2 in the landscape conservation section shall not be counted towards meeting the vegetation requirements. So if somebody has a bunch of non-native plants on their property, we're not going to count those towards the 10% landscaping or the number of trees that they need to have. They need to plant the number of native trees. They can still keep the non-natives, not the invasives. The invasives per that landscape conservation plan have to be removed. So, for example, when we approved the housing project over on Fern Valley Road, they're right up against a riparian area that's covered in blackberries that they wanted to leave. And we said, no, you need to do a riparian plan, you need to remove them, and you need to replace them with native plants. So I think that gets to Commissioner Norpton's point, and does what we're trying to do as far as encouraging the native plants and fire resistant plants.
So it sounded, may I? Thank
Go
you.
ahead, please.
It sounded to me like we already require them to have native plants. So is the encouragement not necessary?
So what it says is, yes. I think that, and hear me out here, I'm very much a native riparian restoration person. But I also know the challenges with people that tried to do only native plants in their landscape development. Became very difficult for them to get done with their landscaping before their occupancy, because getting the specific plants that they wanted or needed. Now, whether that was, by choice that they picked difficult plants, native plants to get, I mean, you can go right up the street to get as many native plants as you want. But there are some other maintenance things and considerations that, I'm not a landscape architect, I'm not a landscape expert, but I think that we should be able to keep that option open for some non-natives. And again, just not allowing them to say, I have a whole property full of non-natives, I don't need to landscape. That we are not going to let them do. We're going to make them landscape with native or with, we're not going to count the non-native vegetation. So if they had a requirement to have 5 trees on their property, let's say, they're not going to be able to count the non-native trees. They're going to have to plant more trees. And again, whether those are non-native or native, does that make sense? They can still, I don't think requiring it is a good idea.
I think it sounds like you're trying to loosen the restriction on it to allow developers to be able to get their landscaping in a timely way to allow them to open, because there's a backlog sometimes of the native plants or a lack of access.
Well, I think that we should be open to, I think that we should be, and this is a planning commission policy recommendation, but I think we should be open to a variety of landscaping and still encouraging the native landscaping. But I don't think that we should force that upon them. That's my recommendation.
I totally agree.
Yeah, I'm only hesitant to change policy because I don't know where it came from or what the origins of it were. If it was just, I'm only hesitant to go back and walk back something without knowing the background on it.
Yes, Jeffrey.
But I'm only one person.
I just wanted to make sure it's clear. So for new landscaping in 3.3 currently, it's non-native and invasive plants that aren't allowed to count towards landscaping. So technically we could today use non-native plants to count as landscaping. But if it's non-native and invasive as defined by OSU, then it's a no, and it's got to be removed. So it's got to meet both of those things.
Right. So you can have the non-native,
Yep.
but you can't have what's a non-native?
Non-native
Blackberry.
invasive, yeah, that's and OSU has the list.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't think we see a whole lot of that anyway. I mean, we do see a lot of, I think I'm thinking Biologic Crop Solutions that just planted. I mean, that was the example I was giving. They were trying to wait for native plants to come in that they could source and get in and plant only native plants in their property. They did it, but they ended up having an extension of their occupancy by 3 or 4 months, maybe a little bit more. And that's a lot for us to track. One, to track every single type of plant. Our landscape code has been really nice about going out and saying, hey, show me where your landscaped area is at. If you have 20% of landscaping and we can see that you have it, and we go out there and do a site inspection and they planted the number of trees that they've planted, we don't always go look at that, at the actual individual tree tag and make sure that that tree tag is a native or a non-native, or, I mean, it depends. I mean, it depends on how, for me going out there and looking at it, it depends on how much pushback I got on the landscape plan to begin with. And then I will start questioning whether or not they planted what they said they were going to plant or the size they said that they were going to plant. But most of the time, most of the developments, you go out there and you site inspect a few of them and you realize that they either planted what they said they were going to, or they overplanted size wise. So for what it's worth, it would make the site inspection at the time of occupancy much easier, especially on a larger project. So that's not the only reason to do it by any means, but I think that there can be a healthy balance of the natives and the non-natives.
I think we should yield to staff's recommendation on this because it gets so many nuances and complications. And I can't compete with what you're talking about with my limited knowledge. And I don't know if anyone else here has the type of knowledge needed, but it sounds like you have a handle on it. And I would just yield to staff's recommendation on this. That's my personal opinion.
Well, and let me just say this, we do hold them to their landscaping requirements too, because and we recently had a development that was supposed to put turf in, and they seeded the area instead of putting turf in, and it didn't grow, and they said that it had taken well.
Right.
And we called them on it and said, no, you're going to put turf in there because that's what you said you're going to put it. So it's those types of things that we can go back and look at. But if somebody's going to plant an ash tree versus a maple tree, I don't know that level of detail is necessary. I will say it's necessary on the street trees because our public works guy wants to make sure that whatever trees they're planting don't uplift the sidewalks. So
a lot of the idea of having these trees is obviously it was for shade, for less reflection of blacktop and cars and things like that. So, I mean, if you plant a native tree that doesn't have very much shade, then I don't want it. I mean, I don't think it should be there. I mean, the whole idea of trees is to, I just read it, I went blank, but anyway, is for reflection of heat and that's we want so much of that.
I think my only thing is that I just am not, I don't want to belabor something that's kind of a small point, and I don't want to hold up the whole policy over something like that. And if staff has a preference, I would yield to that. My discomfort usually is just in making a change to policy without understanding what the original intention was of the policy. So that's just my discomfort with that type of process. But I also know we kind of didn't intend to dive so deeply into this. And so there was just no preparation for it.
Yeah, I honestly think that it's, it helps us clarify a little bit, especially with what Jeff pointed out with the non-native and invasive portion. That's the only thing that's really prohibited now. We're saying that we're just not going to count your non-natives towards the landscaping. So I think we are still making it a little bit more strict because somebody can come in and say, well, this area is landscaped. And we're saying, no, you can't. If it's non-native, you're going to plant another 10% of landscaping, but you can choose native or non-native, native or non-native.
I appreciate that. That clarifies it for me.
So lastly, I just want to get through this because we've got a lot to get through here for some other things. So one thing that Jeff pointed out, and I appreciate him reading this one more time. Chapter 3.3 of the draft code is calling for treatments of parking lots greater than 1/4 of an acre. Or actually, the code currently says 1/2 an acre as proposed. And is it 1/2 an acre? Let's see. No, it currently is 1/4 of an acre. And the OAR says 1/2 of an acre where this particular section applies. And it does matter because the requirements, again, getting to the parking lot requirements are pretty strict and cumbersome when you get over that threshold. So our recommendation is to remove the quarter acre threshold and put what the OAR requires at 1/2 an acre. So parking lots over 1/2 of an acre would be required to meet those specific requirements as parking lots versus the quarter of an acre.
Okay,
Fine with me.
yeah, makes sense. Everybody agree? Any questions there? Thank you.
Okay. That is all I have for those. Those were Paul's Paul's requests and the responses there. He did provide some more responses or some more questions. And I did look over them. I'm again, we're into the details on a lot of things with Paul's comments, and I do appreciate what he's provided. And I think some of these things may come back to have to be changed when we start doing our climate friendly areas. But for now, it's a lot of personal preference, in my opinion. And I think that the code has been evaluated well enough that we should proceed as proposed.
I have a comment. So there was one change he suggested, which is quite simple, and he suggested that light manufacturing definition be the same as we just did it with the PH5 definition of light manufacturing. I have it written out here, and I talked to him about it, and it is a really simple change. I have it written out. Can I hand it out and just show you guys what he's suggesting? Okay, let's just real quick here. And I know that the people online can't. My mic.
Did everybody take a moment to read this, please?
I know that people online can't see this, but Paul was talking about changing the definition of light manufacturing to be consistent with what we just did with the new element for PH5.
And well, just for the record, I think it's in his comments because I'm reading it in the comments that I sent out.
It is.
So
This is just
Commissioner Norton and Adams, you should have that in your email from earlier this afternoon.
So it's just the top part, not the bottom part where it says page 87.
And you had a recommendation based on that, or?
Well, I'm just saying that I recommend that we take Paul's recommendation that we be consistent with the definition of light manufacturing. Our most recent change says light manufacturer is electronic equipment, printing, bindery, furniture, and similar goods. But it also says light manufacturing is intended for industrial uses that involve low-level noise, vibration, air pollution, radiation, glare, fire, and explosive hazards. So he's honing in on the effects of light manufacturing versus heavy manufacturing as being part of the definition of light manufacturing, which is what we currently do with the element for PH5. So my recommendation is to accept his recommendation that we be consistent with what we define as light manufacturing. You can't have light manufacturing defined as one thing in one section, another section, it's a different definition. That's his point. And I think it made some sense.
Well, yes, I agree that does make sense that you shouldn't have two different definitions in your code to conflict, but the PH5 area, that tech zone is very specific to that higher level manufacturing than what we would anticipate in our general industrial or light industrial manufacturing zones in the city. So And I guess I'm not seeing what the recommendation is. So the current definition for the record, light manufacturer means production and manufacturing of small scale goods such as craft electric equipment, bakery products, printing, and binderies, furniture, and similar goods. Proposed definition, light manufacturing, electronic equipment, printing, furniture, similar goods. Light manufacturing is intended for industrial uses that involve. Okay, gotcha. I don't see an issue with that. Sorry, I was just trying to wrap my mind around the comments that you had.
I should have given you a copy.
It's all right.
It's a real simple change to make, but it makes sense. That's what he was proposing. And it was a last minute change, was a light change.
Okay. If the commission is okay with that, and those online hopefully heard that as well, we could definitely make that change. Yes,
So we're pretty close to being done, I think.
I sure hope so.
Okay. Last time I had two things I wanted to, one change that Commissioner McFadden had suggested, and I'm okay with that now. But I had made I guess I'll call it right, about the fencing in the greenway. And when I kept reading it, it doesn't make any sense as to what's written in the new code. And again, I've written it down. I'd like to hand it out to keep it simple. I'll give you a copy also.
So what page is that on?
I'm going to give you
The fencing page in our,
it says here what the page is. So I'll show you. It lists the page in the code, and it lists the page in the packet.
I would just say for the record, and I appreciate the work that's gone into this, but we do put these packets out a week in advance so that I can get these types of questions and comments ahead of time so that I can be prepared to make those changes and show them up onto the screen.
I agree.
Because as it is now, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the audio.
And we had time to submit this because you talked about it at the last meeting.
Yes.
And I agree with Mr. Moody that all of a sudden, here we are again, but
I think it's worth, I mean, we're here, so
Okay.
let's listen to the change. I'm just saying, just when we have complicated things like this, we just gotta make sure that we use that time wisely.
And just for the record, I did call twice and left messages. I didn't get a response back. So I did try to right away the day after I talked to Paul Kay. I also left messages with planning twice. So I tried to do what you're suggesting, but it was unsuccessful. So instead of doing that, I did write it down here. And it's pretty easy to understand, I think. But at the very top, where it says chapter 2.2, this happens in two different sections. In the first section, residential districts, it's on page 62 of the packet and page 184. But it's page 38 of the code. And it's talking about fences along the greenway. And it says fences along the Bear Creek Greenway must be at least 50% transparent, wrought iron split rail design to maintain visibility and interaction with the street. Now, Paul Kay told me he never suggested that. I started saying to him, this is what you suggested. He said, no, I did not suggest that. And if you turn around and look at page 1 on the handout, it has what he suggested. All he suggested was no chain link fences along Bear Creek Greenway, which serves the public frontage. So again, all he suggested was no chain link fences along Bear Creek Greenway, which serves the public frontage. And I was fine with that. And he also specified down below that aesthetics, however important, are not as important as safety. My whole contention is that along the Greenway, safety is a major factor. He talked about his place being burglarized a number of times, and other places get burglarized also. But when we get to page 2 again, it says fences along Bear Creek Greenway. It talks about street visibility. It says fences along street frontages. and the Bear Creek Greenway must be at least 50% transparent because I want visibility interaction with the street. There is no street on the Greenway. It's the Greenway. And for some reason, that language got maybe I'll copy and pasted somewhere into the code. But all he wanted, which is what I would like, is no chain link fences. Chain link fences are prohibited along the Bear Creek Greenway, which dovetails well with the floodplain requirement that there can't be any chain link fences. And as you look along the Greenway, there's some 6-foot vinyl, there's some cedar, there's all different types of fences. One older fence has chain link with barbed wire on it, which is not allowed. So what I'm asking is that we take away, as I've struck with the line through it, A in the first section, and then down below just cross out and Bear Creek Greenway, because it doesn't make sense. There is no interaction with streets. This is talking about street frontages, not Bear Creek Greenway. Do you follow me, guys?
Thoughts?
I agree with Chris.
Yes, Wendy, please.
I agree with Chris. I think it's very confusing. And again, if we could do something that would encourage consistency there, rather than kind of a little bit of this and a little bit of that, I think it would be more aesthetically pleasing as well.
Well, as a point of clarification, the code change doesn't require everything to be consistent. Fences that are already existing will be able to remain. They wouldn't have to be removed under this code and replaced with what is allowed. So you still will have chain link fences with barbed wire. You're still going to have white vinyl fences. You're still going to have wrought iron fences if that was the requirement. So you'll still have a hodgepodge of fence types. It's just that going forward, the idea was to increase security, visibility onto the Greenway to allow for better eyes on the Greenway. It's like we don't allow, a good example is we don't allow 6-foot fences in the front yards of houses because we want eyes on the street. And this is a planning commission's recommendation, so I'm not gonna try to persuade that conversation, but that is the purpose of why that was written. It wasn't copied and pasted accidentally. It was intentional.
Well, the public made a suggestion, and it's different from what the change was.
So,
and if you're a property owner and you're going to build houses or manufacture homes along the Greenway, your whole idea is it's not important to them. I don't mean to speak for them, I'm kind of going to. If there's the last manufactured home in the complex, their concern is not having that last manufactured home have a view of the Greenway. Their major concern is safety and security along the Greenway. As Paul has mentioned, he's been burglarized, as have many people on the Greenway. So the whole point is for safety, number one, aesthetics, number two. So they still could do what you're asking. Just make that last home available to see the Greenway in a manufactured home. And if you go down PH3, you'll see there's a lot of manufactured homes, and the last home or two abuts the fence area. And what you guys are saying in here is that you want to have those people have the Greenway visible to them. It doesn't make sense to me. If it's street frontage, I get it. But this talks about streets. It's not a street, it's the Greenway. And the number one thing to Paul and others is the safety along the Greenway. So that's why I'm just concerned.
So what I will say too, and I, you know, take this with no disrespect to Mr. K, but Mr. K was not the only person on the CAC.
Yes.
That was a group of citizen advisory, you know, folks that sat on that commission. So what's being proposed by Mr. K now isn't necessarily what came out of the CAC. What came out of the CAC was the language that was put into the code. So with that said,
yes,
the commission can change that if you all agree that is what you want to do. That is your prerogative as a commission to make that recommendation to the council. I just want to make it clear that there was a CAC involved here that was active in talking about these connections to the Greenway and trying to keep them as open and transparent as possible. So
But we're not talking connection, we're talking about homes. The connections, when you get a connection to the greenway, you can see the greenway, it's visible. But we're talking here about homes and
but
properties.
what about the connections to the greenway that are a path that somebody wants to build a wooden fence all the way down the path to the greenway?
Uh-huh.
How is that safe?
It protects the homes behind.
Protects the homes behind, but it doesn't protect the users of the pedestrian trail, right?
Well, the user of the pedestrian trail will just walk down the fence and go to the path. The main concern to me and to Paul and others is safety. The homes behind that fence being burglarized. If there's no fence, people that are going along the greenway can just walk onto someone's porch and take their bike or their barbecue or whatever. That's the concern.
I'll leave my comments at that.
I think we should all, did you have any discussion on this? I have something to say. What do you think? Marcel?
Well, it needs to be safe for the people living along the greenway. It needs to be safe for the people walking on the greenway. And if there is an open fence where they can see who's walking along, then they're gonna see if somebody comes to their porch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I agree. Today we have cameras, we have lots of other, Sarah?
So Julia.
Julie, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted
I was
to
looking
check
at-
Sarah because I know
I
she's
was
here
looking
too.
at her. I was looking at her for next, but go
Yeah.
ahead.
So I understand that safety's on both sides of it. And I actually think it's the exact same concern for both. I understand that if you've got bikes, barbecues and things, it's easy for somebody to hop a short fence into your backyard and nick off with it on the greenway and they're gone. I understand that. I also think most of the use of this though is the safety part. As a woman walking alone on the greenway, I absolutely would feel safer if there's more visibility. And I think that we do have an option if you're a homeowner, if you choose to be a homeowner on the greenway, I think you have an option about how to secure things on your porch or patio or cameras and a choice about being there. The public access to the greenway, though, I think we're not going to move the greenway. So I guess I'm agreeing with both. I'm going to slightly err on the side of making sure we have the visibility in order to provide the safety for folks on the greenway.
Thank you. Sarah, did you have anything to add? Or Wendy?
No, I agree with what Sarah said and what they've been saying, that there should be visibility. That should be a priority.
I can't. No, you can't. I guess
We'll open the public hearing.
we'll open up soon, okay? Yeah, I agree with Zach. I like the CAC. I mean, it's a lot of people put input on this. There's public input in it. I think I'd say leave it as is.
Okay, well, you all can make that decision. We're not deliberating now.
No, I know,
but
but
you
I'm
also
saying
make that
I support that. And it's about opening, it's security. I mean, to say it's more dangerous along the greenway than it is in one of the alleys here in town. I mean, it's crime happens everywhere.
But for the sake of the hearing itself, let's
Yeah.
not make a decision on.
No, I'm not making
what
a
we're coming
decision.
to.
This is a recommendation that, or we're looking at, I'm hearing recommendations that
Right.
of safety and so like that. I'm the same with supporting the CAC.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is let's just hold those until
We're not.
I'm saying don't deliberate now. Deliberate.
No,
we have to open the public hearing.
I
first.
understand.
Okay,
Let's do it.
all right. So I don't have anything else to add. I think you should open the public hearing here.
I agree.
Mr. Tony's comments and.
All righty. So at this time, we'll open up the public hearing on this matter, on this agenda item. Yes, please come up and state your name and address
Tony Chavez, 210 North Church Street. I guess I'll work backwards on this. On the fence thing, security is one, but the privacy is also another. Something to consider. You know, cyclone fence doesn't provide that, even with slats. For undesirables, it's kind of window shopping. If you have cyclone fences, you just kind of walk down, see what people have, make notes. So I don't think that's my feeling about that. Is just consider privacy as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Visibility does create opportunity because they can see. I know as a homeowner, I wouldn't appreciate having to cable lock my barbecue on my own porch or other items, bicycles, whatnot. So that's just that. I'm going to go backwards to, I missed the last meeting when you guys talked about this. There's a big discussion about fractional parking spaces. If you have a fractional parking space, consider making it a motorcycle parking. It still provides parking for a motor vehicle. It can help meet a quota.
Yeah.
That was a while back and I missed the last two meetings. And then the other one that is not in the current land code that I see is with state compliance definition of zero setback. There is no definition for it, an application. It's mentioned in there and it's been used on the public safety building, but there is no definition or intention, application and intention for zero setback.
Can I ask a question for a point of clarification? Am I allowed to do that during public hearing? So are you saying that in our current code, we use use that term zero setback?
Yes.
Okay.
It was used on the public safety building.
Can you tell me where that is in our code? I know it may not be relevant to what we're voting on tonight, but I'm just curious, do you know where that is in our code? Because
in setbacks in the city center section, I don't have I didn't bring my iPad, so I don't have the exact section, the exact number, but it is in there. But there is no application or intention definition. I looked for it, didn't see it anywhere. Also, there is no definition or application for buffer zone between a residential zone and a city center or commercial zone that I'm aware of. There's references to it in certain applications, but there is no specific definition of a buffer zone to separate residential zones from other zones.
do we have anything that we're voting on tonight that's related to zero setbacks or buffer zones? Okay. So nothing related to that tonight, but this is for future note.
There will be future amendments too. And just so you know, this was really intended to be more centered around the Bear Creek Greenway and Highway 99 development. We did kind of mix some of our policies from the code audit into this because they were applicable to the audit itself or to the Greenway itself. We still are tasked with coming back and renumbering the code once this is done. And then after that, we have one more set of code amendments to do that address some of the other audit related issues. And that might be the time in which to bring that back.
Okay. And when at that time, I'm sure I'll be aware of it, I'll bring it up, but I just want to bring it to the attention.
Yeah.
There is no specific definition for those.
There actually is. In the very beginning of our packet, it's a building setback and it gives a definition. the distance between the building and the property line measured from the closest point on the foundation to the property line. So
I know what the definition of setback is. I'm talking about zero
Buffer.
setback, the application and the intention.
well,
It was designed for a specific purpose.
We can look at that when,
Yeah, that's all.
but also, just so you know, I mean, just so you don't feel like it's not, your voice is not heard, this does not be the only public hearing. There will actually be one at the council too. So this will go to the council on Monday, if it's recommended for approval. It's already been noticed for that.
Yeah, I didn't, like I said, I didn't know if this was the proper time, but I just wanted to bring.
Sure.
You guys are studying, I
Yeah.
just want to bring it to your attention.
No, it definitely is a good time. It's just, it's not part of that collective set of amendments.
And so another concern is buffering, correct? Did I hear that? Because I think that's,
A buffer zone,
or
an application.
buffering, like vegetative buffering, or what was your concern on
There's a
buffer?
reference in here that requires a buffer zone between city center and residential zone,
Okay,
but there's no definition of what that buffer zone is required.
gotcha.
So it's hard to meet or not meet a requirement that's, there's no.
There's no definition, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
And I did make note of that too. So thank you. for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
All righty, anybody else? Do we have anybody else want to speak on this?
I see that Paul has his right.
Paul, I see a raised hand by Mr. K. Mr. K, please come to the podium, so to speak. Give your name and address.
This is Paul K., 4495 South Pacific Highway. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First, Mr. Moody, thank you. No disrespect felt or taken. We are both professionals debating real issues respectfully. That doesn't mean we're always going to agree, but I experience our communication as collaborative and helpful. I support the recommended revisions to the code, whether you incorporate my technical recommendations or not. I would like to have an opportunity to point out a couple things. First, with the Bear Creek Greenway and safety, I agree that see-through transparency is an important safety factor to include. I do view the Bear Creek Greenway as a frontage. I don't know about calling it a street. I don't know that it matters, but I do think that making our code understandable and unambiguous to those who use it is an important endeavor. And I'm with you for constant improvement. Some comments that I had that I don't think were adequately addressed. And one is the impacts to the wildlife in the Bear Creek Greenway. I recommend at the very least to limit lights interference with the circadian rhythms of the non-human inhabitants. And maybe the dark sky lighting code covers that. I'm not sure. And then the other concern is both social and wildlife, the limit commercial signage along the greenway frontage. Wayfinding, yes. And I'm talking about on commercial properties abutting the greenway. As the greenway becomes used more, there will be temptation to hawk wares and advertise. And I think that's a real insult to the beauty of the greenway and to the wildlife. And I'd like to see a prohibition on lighted signs along the greenway. If you could take up that issue and discuss it, I would support whatever you decide on that for this go around. And I see a potential solution. I was talking about the security afforded by transparency of the greenway fencing, of fencing along the greenway. And maybe you have different standards for commercial and residential. So residential could have some measure of privacy. But commercial is more of a social and transient occupancy. And I believe it should be open to view, but able to be closed from entry. I disagree with the 100% opacity of site obscuring screening on trash sheds. It's people at restaurants at night going out to take out the trash or the recycling. When there's a lurker, it's alarming, it's frightening, it's dangerous. And I've interrupted people repeatedly. We do have security cameras. That doesn't prevent it. It just lets you deal with it after the fact. And by the way, site obscuring is not SITE, but SIGHT. Eugene got it wrong too. I think that's good for now. I really appreciate all of your hard work. And I support adoption of the revisions of the code.
All righty. Well, thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome. And if you have any questions, I'm available.
Anybody have anything to comment or question? I see none. So, all right. Again, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Public comments? In favor of, oppose? All righty. Well, at this time, I'll close the public input or public comments. What are we at here? So, looks like.
Mr. Chair, should we close the public hearing now and go into deliberation?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Do we deliberate inside or outside the public hearing?
After.
That we would close the public hearing and then we could enter
Yeah, I
deliberation.
think staff, did you have anything more?
I'm happy to answer questions if there are any questions in the comments that were received.
I just got one comment regarding, it's a technical thing. In the land development code that was in the packet, the pages listed are a little bit off. It says page 120, then 121, then 120, then 121, then 122.
Yeah, well, the formatting of the actual pages in the code's all messed up because of all of the different
So that'll be fixed.
margins. Yeah, we'll before it goes to council, when we have all of the changes, it will be in its
great.
clean format.
Thank you.
Marcel, did you have anything?
I don't have any other.
McFadden?
I don't have anything outside of deliberations.
All right. Commissioner Adams,
I'm good.
Commissioner Nopetzel, Nopetchins?
Okay.
I'll work on that.
It's all good.
Nor-
Nothing from me. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you want to close the hearing, I can give you kind of a brief summary of a very brief summary of what we talked about, because the easiest way to make a motion is to accept the changes as proposed. But there were a lot of them except for a couple proposed by Commissioner Luz. So
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and close the hearing.
Yes.
Yeah.
At this time, I'll close the hearing.
yeah, and at this time you can deliberate as a commission. If you'd like me to, I mean, it sounds like all of the recommendations that I made for audio purposes here, because we're going to go back and have to take some good notes.
Yeah.
Have been accepted, and then the two in question are what Commissioner Luz proposed, which sounds like there's some good discussion around both of them that we need some clarification on which direction the commission wants to go.
Well, wasn't there just one, the fencing issue?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think the consensus was that the first one with the light manufacturing was fine. But if that's, I'd like to get that on record that we're good with that, because that wasn't one of my recommended changes.
Well, why don't we just ask if anyone has an objection to changing the definition of light manufacturing? Then we can do away with it.
No,
I have no objection. Are you?
no,
wanting to go
I
around?
think if, sure, I mean, that's not a huge change. That's easy to do. Just cross it out, right? Or is
Well,
it?
we have to go around the table and ask all the commissioners. So I'm good with it. McFadden's good with it. I'm good with it. What about Garcia?
I'm good with it.
Okay, the two online.
Sarah,
Yes.
Wendy?
Yes.
Okay,
So the last
Resolved.
issue was the fencing issue.
yes.
Then we're done, I think. Well, as you know, I don't want it to be the way it is. And Paul made a good suggestion regarding residential versus commercial. I would suggest everyone think about themselves living along the greenway, that last home in the mobile home park, and you're in your backyard and there's people flowing by and they can see everything that you're doing and all of your stuff in your yard is visible. And think about the crime that happens or the privacy invasions if you're living there. My wife would go nuts. Anyway, that's my suggestion.
All righty,
But we'll go around
Marcella?
the table and check it out.
I'm good. Good. Yeah.
Myself, I feel that there should be a difference between commercial and residential. That's basically what you're saying. I mean, they should read differently.
So
There should be different fencing. In other words, privacy for private homes, where a commercial, they probably want more open, much like
Paul does.
Yeah, exactly.
So it says fences along the Bear Creek Greenway must be at least 50% transparent. Maybe it should say fences for commercial property along the greenway must be 50% transparent, wrought iron, or to maintain visibility interaction with the street. There's no street, but so we have to make a slight change in the wording.
So, Commissioner, that's my understanding. You're proposing a change to the wording to separate out commercial versus residential. So we're talking about first the fence issue as is and the language as is, and then also discussing your proposed change to the suggested language.
Yes,
The proposed change to the proposed language.
I
Right?
propose.
Well, yeah, except I think he's saying leave A and leave B as long as you just said commercial fences along the Bear Creek Greenway and commercially zoned properties must be that. Then it allows the ability for residential to not have to meet that threshold.
That's it right there.
Right. And I'm fine with that suggestion.
Sure. Sarah, did you hear that? And you and Wendy, Sarah first?
I also haven't made comment either.
Hmm?
I also haven't made comment either. Usually come around.
Sarah?
I heard it. I'm still thinking, so I'd be really
Okay.
interested to hear Commissioner McFadden's thoughts.
Okay, she's gonna be up next. Wendy?
I think it's a good option, a good change.
Okay. McFadden?
So I feel like I keep reminding myself that this is actually for future developments, not current developments. And so when we're looking at changes, developers have the option to develop on their lots however they choose, knowing that these are the codes available. So they're able to design, unlike the mobile home park that's already existing, where I would be very sensitive to their needs there. I think when you have a developer who's going to be able to develop according to that, they can accommodate for what's happening as far as how closely to the greenway they build on their lot, as well as, different accommodations that they make for privacy with the way that they design their studios or units. I'm in favor of having consistency along that greenway. I think when you're looking at safety, I think we end up having better impact on safety when we have as much consistency as we can. We will have existing homes already or existing properties that will have those fences. And then again, I'm obviously still very sensitive to the property thing. I think that's a realistic concern. But I also look on the flip side. One side we have the property theft. The concerns around property theft, which is really the privacy concern, was around property theft that I heard noticed. The other side of it is physical safety. And I think if I'm looking at a choice between the two of those, should a developer develop in a way that would compromise the property safety and privacy of the tenants in the buildings that they build, then I think I would rather err on the side of personal physical safety of the people on the greenway versus property safety. Again, that's just, it's not necessarily a clear-cut issue, but for those reasons, I think I would be inclined to keep the original proposed language.
And if I can just to add to that on the development side of it, because we did have, for example, we have an apartment complex at 610 Main Street, which was replaced after the fire because it burned. And all of those houses face the greenway. They all have porches. They all could have these residential fences, but the other one that was proposed right next door to it, the code didn't allow it to be that facing that direction. And so it was facing its front porch towards the greenway, which wouldn't lead itself to need privacy fence, right, for that. But they could still choose under the way that the code is being proposed to have their parking lot shielded with a wooden fence, which could create security issues too. So going to what Commissioner McFadden was saying, there's a lot of ways that people will build. They will change the building of their parcel, or excuse me, of their development based upon these needs. And if they couldn't put residential fences facing the greenway, then they would probably turn their development around and put their back porches away from the greenway. And then those could be fenced differently. So I would just leave you with that. I think the option, and I'm sorry, I cut in front of Commissioner Norpchin there. But I just consider that it is a real thing about the development. And I think the other thing that we have to consider, and I don't mean to throw another wrench into this one, but we probably need to put some provision in there that allows a replacement of an existing fence to the same type of fence. Because if we get a flood or something like that, we don't want to have the residential, if the residential properties weren't exempt from this, we wouldn't want residential properties that had a solid fence to come back now and have to put a wrought iron fence in necessarily. That, in my opinion, I think they'd want to be able to replace it with a like fence. So.
Okay, Commissioner Norpchin.
Wow, I feel like you guys are listening exactly what I'm saying in my mind. I think that I totally agree with what Zach said is as a community, we're trying to lean into the Greenway and creating that more connections supports that concept and the overall effort. And to what Commissioner McFadden said is if this applies to future developments, it's a choice and you can make your own design choices, fully knowing that you are making the choice to live there and to commit to that area. So I am inclined to keep the existing language.
Thank you.
I have a comment on the safety thing. I don't quite follow. So right now, if you're walking along the greenway, there's one manufacturing home complex that has a white fence that goes along. Others have wooden fences. And as you're going along the greenway by bike or by walking, the fence is here, 6-foot fence, and you're walking along. I don't see where the safety issue comes in as opposed to having bushes there or having it open towards the back of the home, towards the development there. I just don't follow.
Safety for who?
Safety for the walkers or the bikers is what I think you're leading to. But if it were all just like over at by the dog park, when you're at the dog park, you're walking along the path there, walking around, it's all fenced. And I don't see how it's less safe. It's probably more safe than having bushes or other openings along the greenway. But it seems like if it's fenced and you're walking along it, it's safer than not having a fence. I could be wrong, but
I think I would defer first to the staff because the safety was one of the issues that was addressed for why it was being put in. So I would first like to hear what they have to say.
sure.
Yeah, and my, I'm gonna have to probably not give you much because I didn't go to many of the CAC meetings. What I will say though is not all fences are linear. So there are a lot of turns, there are a lot of enclosures, there are a lot of going around utility boxes and things of that nature. So that's the only thing I can think of as far as like on the greenway goes. If, you know, a solid fence might block someone's visibility if it, you know, goes like this and jets out and, you know, comes back in or whatever. There's probably a lot of areas along the greenway where that happens.
I don't think so.
But it could.
I guess it could, but it's not currently existing that way.
Well,
I went down there, it's just, you know, the wood fence, chain link fence.
Yeah.
Vinyl fence.
There's a lot of conflicting things too, right? I mean, we have shrubbery requirements on the greenway. I mean, there are all kinds of things that create security issues. So I think what the question is do you want to continue to add all of those things that create security issues, or do you want to minimize the one that you can so that you can still have the buffering, which is the vegetation? Because along the greenway, you still have to have a certain number of trees and vegetation and things of that nature. So I think
but the security on the fence side is better than the security on the non-fence side. So on the non-fence side, you have bushes, trees, whatever it is. On this side, you have the fence.
Yeah. I mean, Chris and Kathy were both at those meetings, so probably deferring to them about the security issues, probably better.
I wouldn't mind hearing from them. I can tell you what my perspective is. Again, I still would be interested in hearing from Chris and Kathy.
Yep.
For me, just thinking of it as a pedestrian, it's about visibility, and also if there's places where people can, there's lack of transparency, when people have a little bit of exposure, that flip side of what you want when you're a homeowner, I think people are less likely to do disruptive or like derelict things there like that. You know, I think it's when you're in plain sight, it's a little harder to see that. I think it's also easier for our police to be able to monitor the area when they have increased visibility.
That's true.
So I think that's probably my, you know, the two pieces of that. Again, I'd love to hear what Chris and Kathy think.
I see Commissioner Norpshin's got her hand up.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking of, one key difference between what's over by the dog park is that whole park area is wide open and there's only fence on one side. You have clear visibility all across the park. Whereas in the greenway, because you want that healthy riparian vegetation there by the stream, that almost creates a tunnel effect, which can be a little bit scary for folks that are going by themselves. And you know, I'm a lot more comfortable walking on the pathway around the dog park than I am at night going on that little walkway between the public works and the neighborhood with the tall fences. So to me, that's the difference there with the comparison that you're making of at the dog park versus on the greenway.
Walk on the greenway at night. I'm just kidding. Of course not.
Well, it's like walking in a street, you know, and I agree that we do have patrols, and what the greenway is going to look like in 5 and 10 years from now, it's I would assume by all these improvements that we're having and what the future looks like, I think that these are not any more of a safety issue than living in your own neighborhood. I know you can't have a 6-foot fence in your front yard. I mean, it's just not permitted, and there's a reason for it. And but yet, you know, when a person lives in these places, you have chose to live there, and your level of security and privacy is yours.
Did Chris and others have?
Chris and Kathy have not had a chance to weigh in on it. Is it okay, Chair, if we let them give us?
Are they out there?
Yeah,
they are. They're online.
So let's start with. I didn't know we could allow them, but yeah, Chris, are you on there? Chris Green.
Yes, I am.
Chris, you guys have been through the CAC and have heard the public input and so on. Is our verbiage clear enough and clean enough for you, or from what you've heard? Or is there changes that you've heard tonight that should be in there?
So I guess in the CAC meetings, my recollection of those discussions is it was a little bit broader than just security. It was about connections between the greenway and the adjacent properties and visibility and things like that. I think the kind of big picture concept was, if we're trying to have these kind of visibility between the street and buildings, then we should treat the greenway kind of the same way, that it would be a place that it would be visible. And I know security, probably plays into that a little bit, but the main purpose, I think, of the height recommendation is basically and that kind of transparency of fences is, what we had heard was people basically wanted to mirror that kind of front yard approach for new development, and that is a pretty essential security thing for front yards to have that visibility. It's a crime prevention through environmental design technique, and so that was sort of the reason for that piece of it. There wasn't really detailed conversations about like whether people felt safer or not with different heights of fences or anything.
Okay. Kathy, did you have anything to add?
Sure. Thank you, commissioners. I will just add to what's been said, what Chris said about the CAC meetings, and then what was also expressed about the safety. And it comes through the environmental design, and was part of the discussion during the CACs in that regard, as well as it's a pretty common practice with public walkways that the more open and the greater the sight line is, the safer people feel walking on it. And that's general feeling, but also very specifically also to women and single younger people using open spaces and walkways to travel. The longer the sight line, the more open it is, the more people that you can see and that can see you, the more safe you feel.
I like that. Thank you.
Let's vote on it and move on.
It's unless
I mean, let's vote.
I think
I'm going to call for a vote just in this one provision, just to see who wants to make the change make changes to the fence verbiage or not.
I think, is that the only change you're concerned about, is the fence verbiage that we've been talking about, or the difference between commercial and private?
Well, I'd like to have the verbiage changed to accommodate residential and commercial.
Okay.
Residential they can have a 6-foot see-through fence. If they want. Commercial have to have see-through, like at Paul's place.
Okay, I think you had something earlier you said I thought was right on what we're really looking for that change.
Well, let me just get you back to procedure first, though. So you have a point of contention. Well, I'm just saying there's difference of opinion here on this particular subject. And so it's best handled through a motion, and it's best handled through the motion for approval of the proposed revisions with X change, whatever that is.
Well, I think we're looking for verbiage just on the fence alone. Is that correct? Is that what you're?
Well, I think what you're saying is that you're looking for me to make a motion. Like if I said, I move that we approve the land development code changes and move them to the city council with a change in the fencing part of the code, which allows for a distinction between commercial and residential.
Yes.
That we spoke of earlier. That would be my motion. And then we vote on that. If it's turned down, then fine,
Okay.
you go to a different motion.
Then somebody else makes a motion. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to make that motion.
So, well, the one thing I would say is if you could make that motion and also accept staff's changes too.
Okay.
Because I believe those were all accepted.
So I'm gonna make the motion I just
Okay.
made. I think it's pretty clear for the record, along with staff changes.
Which are
Okay.
the changes related to this in particular?
The changes that I presented in the staff report. And
I think we need two
Well-
separate, I would like to have two separate motions for those. I would
Okay.
like to have one, I think, for this proposed language and then one for all of.
you can do that as well.
I think that would be a little cleaner.
Well, I just made a motion.
So yeah, you can
Yeah,
fail it or
so,
not.
I just made a motion. It's not open for debate. You
Right.
need a second
Right.
in order to open up for debate. So we just need a second.
Correct.
Wait, did your motion include
We have a
their
motion, yes,
suggestions for
Buzz.
all of the language?
Yes, so it's a second. Now we can discuss. So you make a motion first, second, then you go into the discussion. And so my motion as proposed is what I just said, is that we approve the change in the code that we discussed this evening and incorporate staff's recommended changes and make a change to the fencing code that accommodates residential versus commercial that we spoke of earlier. That being residential, you can have a privacy fence. Commercial, you can't, much like Paul Case Place where it's open. So that's my proposal. Now we can debate it, then we'll vote on it.
Okay, there's the motion and we have a second. Roll call.
Well, this could be a discussion.
We can have discussion now, then have a roll call at some point. You can call for the vote at any
Right,
point.
you call for, okay, all right. I like, we can do it that way. All right, let's do it
Yeah.
that way. All right, so discussion.
So I think that I will have a problem making a vote on that because I would be opposed to one and in support of the other. So by
Yeah.
putting them together, I think we would end up having a problem. So I would suggest that we separate those out so that we can have the fence, the proposed revision to the fence, separating commercial and residential separate from all the work that the staff presented as far as the proposed changes.
Mr. Chair, I think I'd ask for the people online if they want to
Yeah,
comment
I-
and discuss.
Any comments from online? Commissioner Adams?
I'm kind of torn. I really do think that there ought to be a declared difference between the commercial and the residential. And I certainly understand the standpoint of each. But I'm having a tough time making a determination as to allowing a residential fencing to go up that does not allow transparency.
All righty, thank you. Commissioner Norpich.
I guess I just want to understand. So, Chris's proposal has a couple parts to it, but we can vote on it yay or nay. And if it fails, then we could throw forward another proposal that would say we accept everything and we want to keep the fences the same. Like, so we don't necessarily have to split this up into accepting, vote A, vote B, and vote C. It's, I guess, whatever. I think that we should keep the fencing as is, and it should be transparent.
Okay, so that's your discussion and your deliberation. If there's no more, then you could do the roll call vote.
Right.
And then if the motion fails, then you can make a new motion, or if it passes, then we're done.
All righty. So, yes.
I'll do roll call.
Yeah, roll call. That's what I'm waiting for.
The chips fall.
Okay. Chair Helfrich.
I'll go last.
I'm
I'm chair. I can do that.
Okay.
Mayor does.
Commissioner Monceau. Commissioner Luss.
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden.
No.
Commissioner Norption.
No.
Commissioner Adams.
No.
And Chair Helfrich.
I guess no, it is.
Motion does not pass.
So now, if you would like, I can just really quick again summarize the changes that were in the staff report. were all accepted generally by the commission as we were going through them. We had the change in definition to light manufacturing posed by Commissioner Luz. And that's it for staff changes. I mean, it sounds like a little bit, I talked a lot, but there are a lot of changes in staff's recommendations, but they're in the staff report. And Chris's light manufacturing definition, that would encompass the changes that staff is recommending.
And just to clarify, if I may, would it include the spelling correction about site versus?
Oh, we'll fix that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, there are typos in there. There are duplicate words in there. There are some refinements that we will make that won't make substantive changes before it goes to the council.
The only other thing that we had mentioned in public comment that we haven't discussed is the position on lighted signs on the Greenway. I actually would agree with Mr. Kay on not allowing like lighted signs, especially if you're looking at advertisements. I think if you're trying to get a nature greenway, it's counterindicative. And I think if you do have enough traffic, there would be a tendency to want to advertise to those folks.
So what I would say is the sign code is very, very complicated, which we did not open. It's very much time, place, and manner, which is something we could accomplish here, but I think it is a much broader discussion with the sign code because the sign code is very poorly written currently. So I would recommend that you bring that up when we do the policy changes again. Not to put it off, but I think it is something when you open that up, it is definitely a First Amendment conversation.
I'm happy to postpone that, and I'm just going to ask staff to please make space for that policy discussion later.
Well, I have the motion language here. Did you want to read it or somebody else want to read it? Or I can make a motion again, just like Zach said.
Sure, make a motion to accept the staff changes. Go for it.
Well, so I move to adopt the findings of fact and conclusions of law presented in the proposed final order, including all the staff changes that we have spoken of. Based on those findings and conclusions, I recommend City Council approve the amendments outlined in the proposed final order. Good?
Yes.
Zach Zapping now?
I will second that motion.
You will have a first and a second by Liz and McFadden. Why did I say this?
So deliberation again.
Mr. Chair, why don't you ask if there's any more discussion?
Yeah, I'm just thinking here. Sure. Any more discussion on the motion?
We'll get there.
Starting with Marcella. Any more discussion? Commissioner McFadden?
None from me.
Commissioner Adams? Commissioner Norpchin?
Nope.
Roll call.
Commissioner Monceau,
Yeah.
Commissioner Lutz,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Norpshin,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
and Chair Helfrich.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great job.
All righty.
That's a good, robust discussion.
It should be.
So now moving on to old business, planning commission training.
This was an hour and a half long training probably, and we're not going to go until 10 o'clock tonight, nor will you get anything out of it. But at the request of the commission, we brought it back to the May 12th meeting, but we did not anticipate having a continued hearing. So what I'm willing to do, and I don't usually give my stuff away without presenting it first, is that I can pass out the presentation and send it to you all electronically, give you some study stuff, And then we can come back and at the next meeting, I can go through the presentation. And I'm sure you'll have lots of questions after you go through the material. It might be a better way to do it anyway, because then you can see where my mind is at as far as
Sure. I like
policy
it.
and procedure. I'm totally happy to open it up and show you the summary and just kind of fly through the slides really quick. But I don't know that that's going to give you as much as maybe just pushing it to the next meeting.
I agree. I like it. We can review it and come back and do the presentation at. Yeah, you got home.
I think it would be the May 27th meeting would be fine. I'm trying to remember if we have a public hearing on that. I don't think we do.
So May what?
Oh, well, we might have the Parks Commission. We might have the Park Master Plan on the 27th.
Should we actually just
26?
put it on the 19th then? Which
Oh,
is,
27th,
or the
yeah.
26th is what.
27th, yeah,
Yeah,
it is Memorial Day. We can move this we can put it on there. And if something, I do feel like I have to do the Park Master Plan, the comprehensive plan amendments for you guys. But I'm not sure that those are going to be totally done. So I'd like to put this on the agenda for the 27th. And then if we run into an issue with regular meeting stuff and we have to push it off, at least you'll have it. And that'll give you even more time to ask me more questions. But I'm more than happy to pass it out and I'll also email it to you because it's going to be hard to read here, but there's a notes section on it.
But Chair, did you want to go around and hear from folks about the proposal of change to the training?
Scheduled, so I mean, the meeting's set scheduled for the 27th, so. But the staff is recommending that we have a business ahead of this, ahead of the planning. And if we have time after that business to go over this, is that what you're recommending?
Yeah, I don't think I'm just trying to, I can't remember exactly if we have a public hearing or not. And I don't know where I'm at with the Park Master Plan yet, because I have to see if it gets adopted at the council meeting on the 19th before I can bring you all the comprehensive plan amendment. Because I'm not going to bring that comprehensive plan amendment to you if they don't pass the Park Master Plan. So I'm kind of in limbo, but I would say yes, definitely put this on as new or old business, whatever we do it as for the next meeting. Like I said, I'm totally happy if everybody wants to stay here for another hour of going through it. I can talk all night long.
Chair,
Sure, do you have a different idea than what he's proposed?
Chair, I just want to let you know, I'm okay with what he's proposing. The modification of today's agenda is fine by me to not stay and to push it off to the 27th. Okay.
All right. Anybody else have a difference here?
I will not be here on the 27th. I won't be staying on the 25th. It won't be that towards the end of the night.
Okay,
But
I can schedule time with you to meet as well.
but you'll have a copy. You'll send a copy and we'll have time. That gives us plenty of time to review it and ask questions. Ask questions at the time of the presentation.
I'm fine with that and sending questions too. I mean, I can always refine the presentation to tailor to your questions as well. So,
okay.
It's long, it's 35 slides. So it'll be some good reading. Don't read it tonight before you go to bed.
Okay. Any other comments on this proposed schedule from any other commissioners? If not, we'll move on to comments from commissioners, starting from Mr. Lutz.
It was a good discussion. We can disagree and go home as buddies, right? So I just want to say that I've always been under the belief for many years that if we have a beef or, with a situation with a fellow commissioner or the planning department or whatever it is, I like to pick up the phone, make a phone call, say, hey, Terry, or hey, Marcia, and talk about it one-on-one first. Just like your neighbors, if you have a dispute with your neighbor, talk about it before you call the code enforcement officer, and could probably be handled pretty quickly. So I would encourage everyone, if you disagree with me on something or you got a beef, call me. Well, one time someone made a comment, years after I was mayor, and they said, a lot of times you sigh. I had no idea that I was sighing a lot. So I tried to pull that back a little bit. And I did little things like that. But if you got a problem with each other, always pick up the phone call first. Make a phone call to Zach or to Jeff or to Terry, Julia, whatever, and talk about it one-on-one versus bringing it out in public first. I would make that suggestion.
I like
That's
that. Good suggestion. Thank you. Marcel?
I still think it's good, to be covered. I'm sorry I have to miss the maybe the family calls.
I don't know. Well, enjoy your stay. Commissioner McFadden?
I think actually we didn't go back and
To the motion.
do the motion.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do the motion on the minutes. And so the ones that I had, the modifications, the minutes that we had circulated early on and decided to come back so that the commissioners online could review. So I don't know if you want to postpone addressing those adoptions to the minutes from,
Oh, on the,
yeah, the
We can
10th.
still do it next after we make our comments. Good.
yeah.
So-
You have time still, yeah.
Okay.
You could go back to that agenda item.
Yeah, and I also appreciated, I still think he's mayor. Lutz's, Commissioner Lutz's, his comments, and I think it's really important to make sure that folks are available, and when we don't have availability, that's when we end up having, things have to be discussed in public. I think it's nice to be able to have those in private.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let it fester.
That's right.
Commissioner Norpchin? Do you, Commissioner?
Nothing for me. Thank you for the opportunity to call in virtually and look forward to being there in person on the 27th.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Adams?
Nothing. I did, however, hear someone mention early on that there was another meeting that was scheduled on May 27th and 28th.
Yes.
Yes.
I will talk about that in just a minute. I guess I can talk about it now. Oh,
I'm sorry, I have nothing. Well, I'll pass. So May 27th meeting, is that?
Yes, so Commissioner Adams, to your question, so Planning Commission meets May 27th, which is a Tuesday, because of Memorial Day on the 26th. The two meetings are for the public to come and comment or take the survey for the strategic plan. One meeting on the 27th, and I'm going to get this backwards, but I think he said the 27th is the English presentation of the public outreach in the Civic Center. And then the 28th is the Spanish version of the same meeting in the Emergency Operations Center on the 28th. And you all will be, so this is what I was going to mention with Joe too. So Joe's given you all some homework, which he has to give me, and I will send it to you. Basically, asking for your 5 priorities for possible inclusion in the strategic plan. Personal to you, professional to you. Whatever it is, we want to take that input from all the commissioners. Joe will also be going to the Parks Commission on Wednesday, or Parks Committee on Wednesday, and then I think to some other organizations as well. So he's reaching out individually to these committees and commissions to get their ideas of what should be in the strategic plan. I will formalize that in an email to you all tomorrow, and then you can just reply back to me individually. I can pass that information on to Joe.
I think it might be helpful when we have meetings and whenever we're setting up our meetings for those, it would be helpful to have those in writing. And because we did also get that one here verbally, if you wouldn't mind putting that in email.
I'm sorry, putting what in it?
The dates and the meetings in email.
Oh, yeah, no, I will put it in the email for you so you have a chance.
That's great.
The choice to go. I mean, you still have the choice to go, but you have a meeting. So And we're in a real time crunch with his strategic plan to try to get that portion of it started so that we can do the heavy lifting on the back end. With the expectation that we're going to be having this thing, really rocking and rolling by July and August. So a lot of work.
So are we going to have individual 5 goals or are we going to pool it together as the commission?
You can bring all 5 of your goals to me. I can bring them all to the commission and you guys can choose 5 as a commission, or you can let Joe sort that out.
We need a discussion on that one. Chris, what do you think? Should we, everybody send in their goals? We pick 5, and so it doesn't get too.
Well, on that one, I thought we're gonna all bring our 4 or 5 top choices to a meeting or send them in. And then we would talk about them at the meeting here and come to consensus on the goals that we wanted to send to city council as a commission.
As a commission, yes,
Yeah,
that would be the best. That would be the best way to do it.
And then you can also, as a private citizen, do your own thing.
Right. Okay.
So
I like that. As a commission, you agree, I think, and
that way you don't end up with 35 bullet points.
Norton, do you think we'll get all of our ideas together and pool them together as 5 to pass them on as the commission's 5?
Yes, that was my understanding as it was presented earlier today. Sounds like a good plan.
Okay, terrific. Commissioner Adams.
Yes,
Okay.
One other point, I'd like to attend that meeting on the 27th. So I'm interested in the strategic planning meeting, which starts a half hour before our meeting. I mean, there must be a possibility that the current mayor would be able to set the meeting maybe a half hour earlier and ours a half hour later. Is that too much of a pain? And it shouldn't take more than an hour for that strategic planning meeting, maybe an hour and a half.
The commission you can push a meeting to 7:30 if you wanted to, if that was the only thing on the agenda. The training was the only thing on the agenda, but
is Mayor Muehlhofer set on that particular time? Or do you think it might be flexibility where instead of 6, you start at 5:30?
I think it's pretty well set now because I think all the mailers have already been printed.
Okay, got it.
I would just suggest that personally, in the evenings, I start getting tired at the end. So if it's going to be for a training and us to retain information, I would actually prefer to make sure we start on time. So if we have to maybe find a different day.
Been a long day for me.
Just come late.
All righty. So manager's report.
I was going to let Jeff talk a little about CPAW.
A little update. So we reached out and we finally got a hold of the program manager, Doug Green. Spoke with him last week. He was traveling abroad for a while. But he expressed some optimism for helping us out. He said this kind of project might work out. Funding is a little unstable for him. So he didn't make us a promise, but he said, hey, can you put together an email for me, kind of build a case and provide some, bullets of what you're hoping to get out of it. So I took the highlights reel of what I heard from those past couple meetings, and he said he'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Hopefully not 3 months later, 2 months later, but legitimately he was gone and we were reaching out to him. And so, but that's where we are with that. There's a lot of things going on in planning, but it's getting late and, we can put together some sort of report or quarterly report or something like that that kind of talks about what's going on. But there are some upcoming planning commission applications. You will be hearing an application to remove the rock berm along Bear Creek Drive, the rock berm by Blue Heron Park. The Save the Phoenix Wetlands Group, along with some others, have submitted an application in partnership with ODOT, kind of, because it's ODOT's property, to remove the rock berm in its entirety along the creek. So it's a very extensive application. It's a conditional use permit. And there's a lot of technical data that we're going to be putting together for you. Hopefully the staff report will be helpful. There will be some engineering analysis done by our city engineer. There's a floodplain review. There's a riparian plan. Just about everything that you could think of in that conditional use permit is there to review. So we will have that but that will not be probably until July. So that's coming up.
Okay.
Hey,
I
Zach.
see a hand by Sarah Norton.
Yeah, I was hoping to maybe request a tour to see some of the places they want addressed. I can do that offline individually, but I didn't know if anybody else was interested.
Yeah, we could probably go in pairs of 2.
Okay.
As not create a quorum issue. And or I don't know that I really should go. I'd have to look into because I don't want to give you any of my already preconceived ideas of the plan. So I think I can arrange it and I can show you where it's at and I can show you the extent of it and maybe just at that point just leave.
Is that in part because should there be an appeal of your decision, it would come to us?
No, it's coming to you first. So I'm making a recommendation to the planning commission. And I've already reviewed enough information to know where I'm going with the recommendation. And I don't want to persuade any planning commissioners to feel like that's the way they need to go either. And I think a site visit would be really difficult for me not to express my opinion. So, but we can definitely arrange it. Or you can just go down there. I mean, it is right along the Greenway when you go into Blue Heron Park. When you get the application, I wouldn't do it now because you'll want to see what the extent of the ask is first, and have all that information in front of you so you know what you're looking for.
And there'll probably be a little map in the application that shows exactly where it is.
There's
In
a
the
lot.
application, the map is there, go down and check it out.
Yeah, this will be one of the biggest applications you all have seen as far as content.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that, but I find that large projects like this, it's nice to be on the site. That there's just things that a map won't show you.
Yeah, I definitely encourage you on this one and encourage you to. I will have some history of the purpose of it, and so I'm just going to leave it at that.
Since this is Blue Heron Park, which is so close to where we hold our meetings, is it possible for us to go over during a meeting so that we're actually within quorum?
When you're hearing the application?
Or at some point in time? I don't know if it's possible to do it as part of a meeting.
I'll have to, I don't have the answer to that. Let me check.
I can understand that might be hard to get on record.
I think you can. I don't know if there's any good that would come out of all of you being together there, having the ability to share your opinion on the matter without good documentation of the meeting. So let me look into it. I want to err on the side of caution here because I feel like this one's one that can get appealed either way.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. No more business? No.
We have the minutes.
We
Modification.
The minutes, we still got to see.
correct.
7 minutes to talk about the minutes.
And if I might just introduce them, I was gonna say for me, the intention for this was just making sure I feel like the chair and the commission made really clear efforts to make sure that we were in compliance with public meeting law. And the record reflected that, and I wanted to have the minutes reflect that as well, the efforts that were made by the commission, just to show for the extra layer of transparency.
Okay.
I don't think there were any problems with public meeting law violations, in my view. As far as the minutes go, I appreciate what you guys do and typically you're very available and so the minutes seem to reflect here that you don't have an open door policy anymore, but I'm sure there's a good reason why you just can't drop in and start having a conversation with the planning department. You guys are busy. But I appreciate you. I just want to say that.
It's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Okay. That's all I have. About the minutes.
Anyone online?
What's that?
Just wanted to,
Yeah, I
See if
was,
anybody's-
Commissioner Norbiton.
No comments for me. I vote to approve.
Commissioner Adams.
No comments. I approve.
I will need a motion.
Want me to do it?
Good.
Well, I move that we approve the March 10th, 2025 planning commission meeting minutes.
With, sorry, with the with the requested changes by Commissioner McFadden.
With the requested changes by Commissioner McFadden.
Okay, I wasn't trying to put words in your mouth. I just wanted to make sure if that was your motion, we need it.
That's why we're here again. We gotta have that in there. I mean,
Give me a second.
we have a first and a second, so,
Who is the second?
sorry, myself.
Thank you. So roll call.
Yes, roll call.
Commissioner Monso,
Yeah.
Commissioner Less,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
yes.
Commissioner Norpshin,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams,
Yes.
and Chair Helfrich.
Yes,
Motion passes.
motion passes. So I think at this time, it's 8:55. It's the date now. May 12th, meeting adjourned until, next meeting, is scheduled for May 27th, 6:30.
Okay.